Yoda's distinct speech pattern was inspired by ancient Sanskrit and object-subject-verb languages. George Lucas designed Yoda to sound wise and mystical, so his reversed syntax mimics how ancient texts often read. This subtle linguistic twist adds a layer of timelessness to Yoda's words, making them feel like they're echoing through centuries of Jedi wisdom, even when saying something simple or humorous. The sound of the TIE fighter engines was created by blending an elephant's scream with the sound of a car driving on wet pavement. Sound designer Ben Burt experimented with odd combinations until he stumbled on this eerie, iconic effect. It's why TIE fighters don't just sound mechanical, they sound alive, almost haunted, which perfectly fits the cold menace of the Empire's Starfleet. Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan in the prequels, made his own lightsaber noises during filming. He was so enthusiastic about Star Wars that he'd often mimic the vroom vroom sounds during fight scenes. Eventually, the crew had to remind him the real sound effects would be added later. It shows how infectious the childlike wonder of Star Wars can be even for professional actors on set. Chewbacca's voice is a blend of animal sounds, including bears, walruses, lions, and badgers. Sound designer Ben Burt spent over a year recording and layering hundreds of animal growls and roars until he crafted Chewie's warm, expressive voice. Though we don't understand his words, the emotional clarity in his sounds helped make Chewbacca one of cinema's most beloved sidekicks. In Empire Strikes Back, the asteroid field scene uses a potato and a shoe as flying debris. Industrial light and magic artists had fun slipping in random objects among the rocks because rendering detailed asteroids was time-consuming. So yes, while the Millennium Falcon dodges danger, somewhere in that chaos, a real potato and a brown shoe are spinning through space unnoticed. The name Darth Vader comes from a mix of Dutch and German roots. In Dutch, Vader means father, and George Lucas has said the name was intended to hint at Vader's role from the beginning. Though he didn't finalize the father-son twist until writing The Empire Strikes Back, the linguistic clues were already hiding in plain sight for fans to pick up on even before the big reveal. Jabba the Hutt's puppet in Return of the Jedi took 6 people to operate. It required 3 puppeteers inside and several more outside controlling the eyes, tail, and facial movements. The entire thing weighed over 2,000 pounds. It was one of the most complex puppets ever built for a film at that time and still holds up today, thanks to the craftsmanship of practical effects. The sound of a lightsaber was made by blending the hum of an old film projector with the buzz from a television set. Sound designer Ben Burt accidentally discovered the bass tone while walking past a tube TV with a microphone. The result was this hypnotic, humming energy that became the sonic signature of Jedi combat and one of the most recognized sounds in film history. Carrie Fisher's iconic hairstyle as Princess Leia was inspired by turn-of-the-century Mexican revolutionaries known as Los Adelitas. George Lucas wanted Leia to embody both royalty and rebellion, so he looked for historic influences that mixed elegance and strength. The double bun design became a symbol not just of Star Wars, but of resistance and feminism across generations. Plo Koon, a background Jedi master, once found and trained Ahsoka Tano. While barely mentioned in the movies, this quiet, mask-wearing Keldor is deeply respected in Clone Wars. His calm presence and sharp instincts made him one of the wisest Jedi. He even voted against executing Ahsoka when she was framed, earning a lifelong loyalty from one of the franchise's best characters. The Yuak language was based on Tibetan and Nepalese. Sound designer Ben Burt visited local libraries and remote recordings to mix different tribal sounds. The result was a cute yet oddly believable dialect for these furry forest dwellers. While often seen as comic relief, the Yuaks actually speak a fully constructed language with its own rhythm and syntax. The first Star Wars film had a budget of only $11 million. Adjusted for inflation, it's modest compared to today's blockbusters. Many sets were made using leftover parts from junkyards, and special effects were created by hand. George Lucas risked everything to make a strange space opera no one believed in, and it ended up changing cinema forever in 1977. Samuel L. Jackson specifically requested a purple lightsaber so he could stand out in the massive Geonosis battle scene in Attack of the Clones. George Lucas agreed, even though purple wasn't a canon lightsaber color at the time. Jackson's saber is engraved with BMF, short for Bad Mother, for a nod to his famous wallet in Pulp Fiction, a detail you never see on screen. The Millennium Falcon was inspired by a hamburger with an olive on the side. George Lucas wanted a ship that didn't look like any traditional spacecraft. So concept artists mashed shapes together until someone noticed a burger-like profile with the cockpit as the olive. The Falcon's off-kilter design makes it feel old, reliable, and unlike anything else in sci-fi. Boba Fett was originally designed as a super stormtrooper in white armor. His character was meant to lead an elite squad, but the idea was scrapped due to budget issues. The armor was painted and reworked, becoming the bounty hunter we know. Even with limited screen time, Fett's cool demeanor and mysterious aura turned him into a fan-favorite legend. Qui-Gon Jinn's death scene was filmed without music to increase its emotional impact. In a saga known for John Williams' sweeping score, the silence during Darth Maul's fatal strike makes the moment feel raw and real. The absence of music lets you sit with the shock, the heartbreak, and the growing dread as Obi-Wan watches his master fall before his eyes. David Prowse, who played Darth Vader physically, wasn't told about the twist that Vader is Luke's father. Only George Lucas, Mark Hamill, and James Earl Jones, the voice of Vader, knew during filming. The famous line, "No, I am your father," was dubbed in post-production to keep the secret from leaking. Even the cast didn't know until the movie premiered. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was built atop an ancient Sith shrine. In canon lore, the Sith created a dark nexus beneath the city long before the Jedi Order took root. By building their temple over it, the Jedi hoped to suppress its power. Some believe the lingering darkness slowly clouded their judgment, hinting that the Jedi were never quite in control. Mark Hamill held his breath for over a minute to film Luke's underwater scenes in The Empire Strikes Back. During the Dagobah sequence, Luke falls into the swamp while training with Yoda. With scuba divers on standby, Hamill chose to do most of it himself. Though brief on-screen, that moment was a tough shot filmed in a studio tank filled with fog and mud. Count Dooku's curved lightsaber hilt was designed for fencing, reflecting Christopher Lee's real-life experience with the sport. Lee performed many of his own stunts, even in his 80s. His elegant, deliberate dueling style made Dooku feel like a Sith aristocrat, deadly but refined. The saber's curve allowed for unique wrist movements unseen in other Jedi or Sith. Stormtroopers are famously inaccurate, but that's by design. In A New Hope, they let the heroes escape the Death Star to track them to the Rebel base. Their later failures are due to mass conscription and lack of training after the Clone Wars. The original clone troopers were far more precise trained from birth, unlike the Empire's quickly recruited masses. A young Han Solo was supposed to appear in Revenge of the Sith, living with the Wookiees on Kashyyyk. Concept art and early drafts show a 10-year-old Han helping locate General Grievous. The scene was cut for pacing, but it would have linked Han directly to Yoda and Chewbacca earlier in the timeline. Now, it's just a fascinating what could have been from Star Wars lore. The Wilhelm scream is used in nearly every Star Wars movie. It's a stock sound effect of a man screaming, first used in a 1951 film. Sound editor Ben Burt included it as an inside joke in A New Hope, and it became a running gag among Lucasfilm productions. It's usually heard when someone gets shot or falls dramatically. Once you know it, you'll hear it everywhere. George Lucas took inspiration for Star Wars from Japanese samurai films, especially Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. The structure of having a story told through the eyes of two low-ranking characters, like R2-D2 and C-3PO, was directly borrowed. Jedi robes, honor codes, and lightsaber duels also trace back to the Bushido traditions of samurai warriors. Yoda was almost played by a monkey in a mask. Early production plans had a trained monkey holding a cane, wearing a latex Yoda face. But the test footage was awkward, and the monkey kept pulling off the mask. The idea was quickly scrapped. Frank Oz's masterful puppeteering and voice acting turned Yoda into one of the most soulful and wise figures in all of fiction. Padme Amidala's elaborate costumes were inspired by Mongolian royalty. Designer Tricia Bigger looked at traditional Mongol, Japanese, and Russian court fashion to create Padme's regal looks. Her outfits weren't just visual flair, they symbolized her transformation from queen to senator to mother. Each costume was layered with history, identity, and political symbolism. The Clone Wars clone troopers were voiced almost entirely by one actor, D. Bradley Baker. He gave each clone a unique voice and personality, despite them being genetically identical. From Rex to Cody to Fives, every soldier had distinct inflection, attitude, and emotion. It's a masterclass in voice acting and part of what made the Clone Wars so beloved and human. The opening crawl of Star Wars was inspired by the Flash Gordon serials from the 1930s. George Lucas wanted to capture the feel of an old-school adventure reel, so he used bold text flying into space to set the tone. It was so difficult to film in 1977 that they used a giant backlit model and physically moved the camera over the text, a practical effect that took hours. Darth Maul only had 3 lines in The Phantom Menace, but his presence left a huge impact. Ray Park performed the stunts while Peter Serafinovich provided the voice. His look, double-bladed saber, and martial arts skills made him unforgettable. Fans loved him so much that Lucasfilm brought him back in Clone Wars, Rebels, and Solo to expand his story. In universe, the reason lightsabers stop at a fixed length is because of a device called a focusing crystal activator. It channels energy through a kyber crystal, shaping the plasma into a blade of specific length. That's why you don't see sabers stretching endlessly. Like whips, it's controlled energy. The science may be fictional, but it's internally consistent. The Mandalorians, stagecraft tech revolutionized filming. Instead of green screens, actors stood in front of a 360-degree LED wall projecting real-time environments. This created natural lighting and reflections, making scenes feel immersive and grounded. Dubbed The Volume, it changed how sci-fi and fantasy are filmed and brought Star Wars back to visual innovation. In Return of the Jedi, Ian McDiarmid's eyes were nearly burned by Emperor makeup. During lightning scenes, special reflective lenses were used to make his eyes look unnatural. But they irritated his pupils so badly he had to film quickly between takes. Despite that, his performance as Palpatine was chillingly iconic, one of cinema's most memorable villains. The binary sunset scene on Tatooine, with Luke staring at twin suns, wasn't just visual, it was emotional. John Williams' music, called Force Theme, swells to match Luke's longing for adventure. That moment became symbolic of hope and destiny. In only a few seconds, it captured the entire soul of Star Wars, the quiet ache for something greater out there. Greedo originally shot first. In the 1977 version of A New Hope, Han Solo shoots Greedo without warning. In 1997, George Lucas edited the scene so Greedo fires first and misses, justifying Han's action. This sparked the infamous Han shot first debate among fans. It remains one of the most hotly debated changes in the special editions to this day. Kylo Ren's cracked lightsaber was unstable by design. His kyber crystal was damaged during construction, so it emitted excess energy. The cross-guard blades on the sides are actually vents to control the unstable plasma. That wild, flickering energy reflects Kylo's own emotional turmoil and refined power, constantly on the edge of spiraling out of control. R2-D2 once cursed so much, they had to bleep him. In The Empire Strikes Back, when R2 gets shocked by a swamp creature on Dagobah, he lets out a flurry of beeps and boops. The sound design intentionally mimicked the rhythm of actual swear words. The result is a moment that feels like pure comedy, even though you technically have no idea what R2 actually said. The Empire's design language was inspired by Nazi Germany. From officer uniforms to propaganda posters, the aesthetic intentionally mirrors fascist regimes. George Lucas studied World War II footage to create a visual shorthand for tyranny. That's why Star Destroyers are so angular, cold, and oppressive. They embody the brutal efficiency of authoritarian control. The name General Grievous was chosen because he was meant to embody grief. He was a once proud warrior mutilated into a machine by the Sith, driven by pain and hatred. Though he only appears briefly in the films, his backstory in Clone Wars shows he lost everything. Even his wheezing is a result of an injury from Mace Windu crushing his chest plate. The Force was originally more physical than spiritual. Early drafts of Star Wars described it as a kind of field that could be manipulated like magnetism or gravity. Only later did Lucas evolve it into something mystical, adding ideas of balance, destiny, and the light vs. dark. The introduction of midi-chlorians in the prequels added a biological layer, too. Anakin's scar between episodes 2 and 3 was never shown on screen. The origin of the scar is explained in the Clone Wars microseries, where he duels Asajj Ventress and takes a lightsaber slash across his eye. That little detail appears suddenly in Revenge of the Sith, with no mention in the films, but fans of the animated series know exactly how he got it. George Lucas initially offered Yoda to Jim Henson. Henson was too busy but recommended Frank Oz, who became Yoda's puppeteer and voice. Oz based Yoda's speech and movements on a blend of old Zen masters and eccentric uncles. The result was a character that felt instantly ancient and wise, despite being a green alien puppet with big ears and 3 fingers. Blue milk is a real drink. On set, it was Long Life milk dyed blue, used during filming in Tunisia for A New Hope. Mark Hamill said it tasted awful, especially under the desert heat. Decades later, fans could try blue milk at Galaxy's Edge in Disney Parks, a frozen coconut rice milk smoothie that tastes much better than the chalky original from 1977. Liam Neeson's Jedi robe dragged on the ground so much it wore out during filming. Qui-Gon Jinn's calm, long striding walk meant the robe constantly caught sand and dirt. Wardrobe teams had to replace or patch the robe regularly. It wasn't just a costume, it became part of the character's physical presence, making Qui-Gon feel like a grounded, seasoned Jedi. C-3PO had a silver leg for most of the original trilogy. Many fans didn't notice because the metallic reflection blended with the gold and lighting. It wasn't until The Force Awakens that he got a red arm, another subtle sign of change. 3PO's mismatched limbs represent how he's constantly being rebuilt and repurposed, yet he remains the same anxious droid at heart. In Revenge of the Sith, all of General Grievous' coughs were voiced by George Lucas himself. He had a cold during post-production, and sound designer Matthew Wood recorded it for authenticity. That raw, rattling cough became a signature for Grievous, reminding us he's part machine, part organics, and deeply broken both physically and emotionally by Sith tampering. Alderaan was the first planet destroyed by the Death Star, but it wasn't the first in canon. In Rogue One, the Death Star tests its super laser on Jedha and Scarif. These were low-power blasts, still powerful enough to level cities or vaporize islands. It showed how the Empire refined its weapon before using it to wipe out a peaceful planet in A New Hope. Wookiees are known for their strength, but canon says they can also rip arms off in combat. This comes from a line in A New Hope, when Han says Chewie doesn't lose at Holocaust because he'll rip your arms out of your sockets. In Solo, we actually see him do it. Wookiees may be loyal and kind, but when provoked, they're among the fiercest warriors alive. The character of Lando Calrissian was originally created as a possible stand-in for Han Solo. During contract negotiations with Harrison Ford, Lucasfilm wasn't sure if Han would return, so Lando was introduced as a smooth-talking rogue with a heart. Luckily, Ford returned, but Lando, played by Billy D. Williams, became iconic in his own right as a suave hero. Luke's lightsaber in Return of the Jedi is green because the original blue blade didn't show up well against the Tatooine sky. During filming of the Sarlacc pit scene, they realized the blue blade was hard to see, so they changed it to green in post-production. The change wasn't just practical, it gave Luke a distinct, mature identity compared to his past self. Darth Vader's chest panel buttons don't match across movies. In A New Hope, the buttons are randomly colored with no clear function. By Empire, they're updated for consistency, but they still don't do anything on screen. Despite being a life support system, no one ever explains how it works, adding to Vader's mystique as half-man, half-machine enigma. The Jedi Order forbade attachments, but not love. In the prequels, Anakin misunderstood the rule. Jedi were allowed to feel love, but discouraged from forming attachments that led to fear of loss. Yoda tried teaching detachment through compassion. Anakin's confusion wanting to possess rather than selflessly love led to his tragic fall to the dark side. Leia was originally planned to become the chosen one, who would bring balance to the Force in the sequel trilogy. Early drafts by George Lucas and later by Disney explored her Jedi path. In The Rise of Skywalker, we learn she trained with Luke and even bested him in a duel. Though she stepped away from the Jedi path, her strength helped guide the next generation. The trash compactor scene in A New Hope was filmed with real garbage. The smell was so awful that Mark Hamill burst a blood vessel from holding his breath and straining during the scene. That injury is why Luke spends part of the movie with a bloodshot eye, something they couldn't hide with makeup. The realism came at a cost, but it made the scene unforgettable. In Rogue One, the planet Scarif was named after a misheard Starbucks order. Gareth Edwards said a barista misunderstood his name and wrote Scarif on the cup. The team liked the sound of it and used it for the tropical Imperial base. The name stuck, and now it's canon. Just like that, a coffee mix-up became one of the most important battlefields in Star Wars. Lightsabers don't cut through everything. In canon, materials like Beskar and cortosis can resist lightsaber strikes. That's why Mandalorian armor can withstand hits and why duelists sometimes use cortosis blades. This adds depth to the lore. Lightsabers are powerful, but not unstoppable. Jedi must still rely on skill, not just cutting through every obstacle. The music for Duel of the Fates is based on an ancient Welsh poem. Composer John Williams used Sanskrit translations of the text Battle of the Trees, a mythic tale of war and transformation. The chanting gives the piece its haunting, mystical quality. It's not just action music, it represents fate, conflict, and the ancient spiritual forces surrounding Jedi. Jar Jar Binks was the first fully CGI main character in film history. While divisive, his creation pushed digital technology forward. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar, wore a motion capture suit on set an early version of tech used later in Gollum and Avatar. Without Jar Jar, today's VFX breakthroughs might have taken much longer to arrive in mainstream cinema. Darth Plagueis was mentioned only once in the films, but his legacy looms large. Palpatine's tale to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith hints that Plagueis could create life and prevent death, abilities linked to the mystery of Anakin's virgin birth. In Legends, Plagueis experimented with midichlorians. Whether canon or myth, his story haunts the entire saga. In The Mandalorian, Din Djarin rarely removes his helmet, but Pedro Pascal wasn't always inside the suit. Many action scenes were performed by doubles, including Brendan Wayne, grandson of Western icon John Wayne. Pascal later dubbed over the performance. Still, the Mandalorian's calm voice and heavy presence gave him classic gunslinger energy and heart. Vader's castle on Mustafar was designed to amplify dark side energy. The site is built over a Sith cave strong in the Force, where ancient rituals took place. In Rogue One and comics, we see Vader using the location for meditation, healing, and even trying to resurrect Padme. His home is not comfort, it's pain, chosen as a symbol of his transformation and loss. The Yuak language, Yukis, was created using altered comic and Tibetan phrases. Sound designer Ben Burt listened to tribal elders speaking rare dialects, then sped up or slowed down the audio. It made the Yuaks sound authentic without being gibberish. Despite being cute and cuddly, the Yuak speech was carefully crafted to reflect a real culture and cadence. Many of the Clone Wars battle strategies were based on real military history. Writers consulted with historians to shape the Republic's tactics. Captain Rex's maneuvers often reflect classic flanking and guerrilla warfare, while Jedi like Anakin favored reckless frontal assaults. It helped ground the fantasy in real-world logic, making war feel both epic and tragic. Rey's theme subtly contains hints of the Force theme. John Williams wove echoes of older motifs into her melody, suggesting her connection to the larger saga. It starts playful and hopeful, grows bold and heroic, and mirrors her journey across the sequel trilogy. Listen closely, and you'll hear notes that tie her to Luke, Anakin, and the Skywalker legacy. Rogue One was the first Star Wars film to not use an opening crawl. Instead, it jumps straight into action after a simple title card. This was to signal that the movie was a standalone story within the universe, not part of the main saga. It set the tone for other Star Wars stories and showed Lucasfilm was willing to experiment with format and structure. Lightsaber colors aren't just aesthetic. They reflect the user's nature and alignment. Blue typically represents guardians and protectors, while green is for wisdom and diplomacy. Purple, like Mace Windu's, signals balance between light and dark. In lore, red blades come from kyber crystals being bled by Sith through dark side corruption, making them scream in pain. Mark Hamill voiced Darth Bane in the Clone Wars. Known for playing the heroic Luke Skywalker, Hamill showed his villainous side voicing the ancient Sith Lord, who created the rule of two. This rule, one master, one apprentice, defined the Sith for centuries. It's poetic that Luke's actor also portrayed the architect of Sith tradition in a later generation. The actor who played Wicket the Yuak, Warwick Davis, was only 11 years old when filming Return of the Jedi. He was originally just an extra, but when Kenny Baker R2-D2 fell ill, Davis stepped into the role. His charm and energy made Wicket the breakout Yuak. Davis has since appeared in multiple Star Wars projects, becoming a long-standing fan favorite. In The Force Awakens, Rey's vision after touching Luke's lightsaber includes voices from past Jedi. You can hear Obi-Wan, both Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor, Yoda, and even young Anakin. Sound designers spliced archival recordings and new lines to echo through the Force. It's a subtle nod to Rey's connection with past generations and her unfolding destiny. Droids like R2-D2 and BB-8 communicate in binary beeps called droid speak. Ben Burt created R2-E's personality by modulating synthesizer tones with emotional inflection. BB-8E's voice was co-created by comedians Bill Hader and Ben Schwartz using a voice modulator. These beeps aren't random, they're deliberately designed to convey real moods and responses. Luke Skywalker was originally supposed to turn to the dark side in Return of the Jedi. Early drafts imagined him killing Vader, taking his helmet, and declaring, "Now I am Vader." Lucas eventually chose redemption over tragedy. That shift made Luke's arc complete, not as a warrior, but as someone who chose compassion over hate, which became the saga's core. TIE fighters don't have shields or hyperdrives. They're designed for short-range attacks and depend on Star Destroyers for deployment. The Empire valued quantity over quality, sending waves of cheap, expendable ships. That's why Rebel ships like the X-Wing were more versatile, with shields and hyperspace capability small but independent, just like the Rebellion. The voice of General Grievous was created by blending actor Matthew Wood's voice with coughing and animal growls. Wood recorded his lines with a sore throat and added layered distortions to give Grievous his labored, inhuman sound. It emphasized his cyborg nature, still suffering, still angry, still clinging to identity despite being more machine than man. In Attack of the Clones, the sound of seismic charges from Jango Fett's ship was inspired by a reverse explosion. Sound designer Ben Burt used silence followed by a sudden sonic boom to catch audiences off guard. The effect was so unique that fans instantly loved it, and it returned years later in The Mandalorian, where Boba Fett uses the same weapon. C-3PO was originally sketched to look like a sleeker, silver female robot. Artist Ralph McQuarrie took inspiration from Metropolis 1927 for the design. Over time, the idea evolved into a male-coded protocol droid with golden plating and anxious mannerisms. Anthony Daniels brought 3PO to life with prissy body language, inspired by English butlers. The Jedi Council includes members from over 12 species, showing how diverse and ancient the Order was. Not all were humanoid like Yoda unknown species, Yaddle, and Oppo Rancisis with his long snake tail. The council was based on real-world councils of elders and spiritual leaders, and each seat symbolized wisdom across cultures in the galaxy. The Death Star's weakness, a small exhaust port, wasn't a plot hole. It was deliberately placed by Galen Erso, an Imperial scientist who secretly rebelled. This detail, revealed in Rogue One, reframes the saga and gives new weight to the rebellion's success. It wasn't just luck or good aim, it was hope, sacrifice, and a hidden act of sabotage that saved the galaxy. Force ghosts can choose how they appear. That's why Anakin shows up young in Return of the Jedi's Special Edition, representing the last time he was truly himself before turning. Obi-Wan and Yoda appear as wise elders, reflecting their peace in the Force. Canon suggests spirits retain consciousness and can guide the living one of the Jedi's deepest mysteries. In the Clone Wars, Anakin's apprentice Ahsoka Tano walks away from the Jedi Order. It was one of the boldest character arcs in Star Wars, showing how the Jedi lost touch with compassion and justice. Ahsoka's departure echoed Anakin's growing disillusionment and foreshadowed his fall. But unlike Anakin, she found her own path and stayed true to the light. The word Padawan was invented for the Phantom Menace. It wasn't used in the original trilogy, though the concept existed. It's derived from the Sanskrit pad, meaning step, and wan, an English suffix meaning learner. The term has since become part of everyday language among fans, often used to describe someone learning or being mentored. Yoda's fighting style, Ataru, is all about agility and rapid movement. It looks unnatural for his small size, which is why his duel with Count Dooku stunned audiences. Ataru is a high-energy form requiring intense acrobatics, usually not recommended for older Jedi. But Yoda's mastery of the Force lets him defy his age and unleash stunning flips and strikes. The Millennium Falcon's cockpit is off-center, and that design was inspired by Wee bombers like the B-29. Lucasfilm wanted the ship to feel asymmetrical, scrappy, and functional. That off-kilter look makes it feel lived in and real, just like Han Solo himself. Despite its quirks, it remains the fastest ship in the galaxy, thanks to constant custom upgrades. Obi-Wan's alias Ben was never fully explained in the films, but the Kenobi series hints it was a way to bury his identity. He chose Ben to live humbly and avoid recognition while watching over Luke. The name is common, unassuming. It reflects Obi-Wan's exile, a Jedi hiding in plain sight, haunted by loss, yet still holding on to hope for the future. The Jedi mind trick works only on the weak-minded. It fails on species like Toydarians like Watto and Hutts, who have natural resistance. This limitation keeps the power from being too overpowered and shows that persuasion isn't always about magic, it requires insight. Jedi often study psychology and cultural nuance to know when and how to use it. The Force is actually a cosmic parasite. What if the Force isn't a mystical energy field, but a living entity that feeds on life itself? It grants power to those who use it, but in return it drains them, slowly corrupting or consuming Force users over time. Darth Plagueis is still alive, but exists outside of time. Plagueis could supposedly manipulate life and cheat death, but what if he found a way to exist outside of time itself? Instead of dying, he may be watching everything unfold, waiting for the perfect moment to return. Palpatine's secret clone war. What if Palpatine had a second clone army hidden in the unknown regions? Unlike the Kaminoan clones, these were infused with Sith alchemy, making them stronger and more obedient. This hidden force could have been his backup plan in case of failure, explaining why the First Order emerged so quickly. After the Empire's fall, perhaps Snoke himself was a failed attempt at mass-producing a Sith-powered clone leader. The Force is an ancient AI. What if the Force is not mystical, but an ancient intelligence guiding the galaxy? The Jedi and Sith may believe they are using the Force, but they are actually being manipulated by a system far older than civilization itself. This AI could be the reason history repeats and why prophecies exist. The Chosen One may not be a person, but a protocol designed to reset the balance whenever things spiral out of control. Palpatine's true plan for the Jedi. Palpatine didn't want to destroy the Jedi completely. What if his real goal was to convert them into dark side warriors by slowly twisting their beliefs? He could have planned for the Jedi to rebuild under his control, using Sith teachings disguised as wisdom. Luke's academy may have been part of this trap. If the Sith knew they could never wipe out the Jedi, they may have settled for corrupting them instead. Exegol wasn't Palpatine's world. What if Palpatine didn't create Exegol, but discovered it? Exegol may have belonged to an ancient Sith species long before him, and he simply took over what they left behind. If true, there could be even older Sith ruins deep beneath the surface, containing knowledge and weapons beyond anything Palpatine ever used. If someone else found them, they could awaken a power stronger than the Sith ever imagined. The Force can be stolen. What if someone could take the Force from another being? Instead of training to become Force-sensitive, certain individuals may have discovered a way to absorb another's connection to the Force. This could explain why some powerful beings vanished without a trace. There may be a hidden group within the galaxy that doesn't just use the Force, but actively harvests it for themselves, creating unstoppable Force predators. The Old Republic is still alive. What if the Old Republic never truly fell, but simply relocated beyond the Outer Rim? A secret civilization may still follow the ancient Jedi traditions, ruling over unknown star systems. The fall of the Republic could have been an intentional sacrifice ensuring that the Sith never discovered the true heart of their empire. If so, they may be waiting for the perfect moment to return and reclaim the galaxy. Yoda knew about a bigger threat. What if Yoda trained Luke so quickly because he knew something worse than the Sith was coming? The unknown regions could hide an ancient enemy, one that even the Sith feared. Yoda's cryptic teachings may have been meant to prepare Luke for a battle that has yet to happen. The fall of the Empire may have just been one small step in a much larger war that the Jedi sensed but never had the chance to explain. The true origin of the dark side. What if the dark side was never part of the Force originally, but an infection from an outside entity, a force beyond the galaxy, may have corrupted the natural order, twisting the Force into something violent and chaotic? This could mean the Jedi and Sith are both wrong about balance. The true goal of the Force may not be light or dark, but to purge the corruption that has been manipulating both sides for eons. The Jedi erased a dangerous Force power. What if the Jedi once had knowledge of a Force ability so dangerous they erased it from history? This power could have allowed users to manipulate time or even rewrite reality itself. It may have been used during ancient wars, causing catastrophic damage. The Jedi Order may have decided that no one should wield such control over existence, and buried all records, ensuring the ability would never return to the galaxy. Darth Vader's armor was a cage. Vader's armor was built to keep him alive, but what if it was also designed to trap his true potential? Palpatine may have used Sith runes and hidden technology to suppress Vader's raw power, ensuring he never surpassed his master. The suit could have been an artificial limiter, preventing him from healing completely or tapping into the full depths of the Force, keeping him dependent on the Emperor's control forever. The lightspeed barrier was artificial. What if the reason ships can't travel instantly across the galaxy isn't due to physics, but because the Force is preventing it? Jedi and Sith may have once traveled anywhere instantly through hyperspace, but something caused the Force to limit their ability. If this barrier was ever removed, civilizations could expand beyond the galaxy itself and find other planets that have never been touched by the Force before. The Jedi originally worshipped a living Force god. What if the Jedi were once a religious order worshipping a physical being that embodied the Force? Over time, their teachings evolved, and they forgot their original god. This being may still exist, watching the galaxy, but unable to interfere. The Sith may have discovered traces of it and twisted the truth, hiding the knowledge to ensure that no Jedi would ever seek out the true source of their power. Darth Vader's helmet was a Sith artifact. What if Vader's helmet wasn't just armor, but an ancient Sith relic imbued with dark power? Palpatine may have designed it using Sith alchemy to keep Vader in line. The whispers he heard weren't just in his head, but actual dark spirits trying to push him further into the dark side. If Luke had worn it, he might have felt the same pull, meaning Vader's control over himself was a constant battle against its influence. The lightsabers were originally meant to heal. What if kyber crystals weren't supposed to be weapons, but were once used for healing? Ancient Force users may have used them to repair wounds or even bring people back from the brink of death, but over time, their purpose was corrupted. The Jedi and Sith may have forgotten their true potential. If this knowledge was ever rediscovered, lightsabers could become more than weapons and be used to truly restore life. The Chosen One prophecy was mistranslated. What if the prophecy of the Chosen One was never about balance at all, but something entirely different? Jedi texts may have mistranslated it, leading them to believe Anakin was meant to destroy the Sith, when he was actually meant to do something much bigger. If the real prophecy is still out there waiting to be interpreted correctly, then the true Chosen One may not have even appeared in the galaxy yet. The Jedi were originally nomads. What if the Jedi weren't always an organized order, but started as wandering monks who followed the Force without rules or restrictions? They may have only settled into temples later, after discovering that teaching the Force required structure. Over time, their original way of life, was forgotten, but remnants of it may still exist in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where Force users live without the influence of Jedi or Sith. A hidden Sith empire still exists. What if the Sith never truly died out, but instead retreated into deep space? Palpatine and Vader may have only been a distraction, while the real Sith Lords built their empire in secret. They could be watching the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to return stronger than ever. So then the fall of the Sith may have been nothing more than a trick allowing them to rise again when the Jedi least expected. The Mandalorians were once Force-sensitive. What if Mandalorians were originally a Force-wielding people, but lost their connection due to a catastrophic event? Their warrior culture may have been born from their attempt to survive without the Force while still competing against Jedi. This could explain their deep hatred for Force users, since they may see them as reminders of what they lost. If true, then restoring the Mandalorians' connection could change everything. The first lightsabers were created by the Force itself. What if lightsabers weren't originally built by Jedi, but were created naturally by the Force? Certain kyber crystals may have formed into blades on their own, and the first Force users simply discovered them. If this is true, then lightsabers may have a deeper connection to the Force than anyone realizes. Some ancient lightsabers could still exist, holding untapped power that even the Jedi and Sith have never unlocked. A time loop controls the Star Wars galaxy. What if history keeps repeating itself because the galaxy is trapped in a time loop? Jedi rise, Sith take over, a hero appears, and balance is restored, only for the cycle to begin again. The Force may be maintaining this loop, ensuring that the battle between light and dark never truly ends. If someone could break free from the cycle, they might uncover the true nature of the Force and find a way to change the galaxy permanently. The unknown regions hold the key to the Force's origins. What if the unknown regions aren't just uncharted space, but where the Force itself originated? The strange disturbances and dangers found there may not be natural, but defenses created to keep outsiders away. If the Jedi or Sith ever reached the true source of the Force, they might unlock abilities beyond imagination, or risk destroying the balance forever. The Force's true nature may be something far more mysterious than anyone realizes. The Jedi once had a secret third faction. What if there was once a third group within the Jedi, who neither followed the light nor dark side, but something in between? This faction may have believed in using emotions to strengthen their connection to the Force without falling to corruption. The Jedi Council may have erased them from history, fearing their ideas were too dangerous. If any remnants of this lost faction exist, they may hold the key to truly balancing the Force. The first Jedi may have been artificially created. What if the first Jedi weren't naturally Force-sensitive, but were created through ancient technology? An advanced civilization may have experimented with midichlorians to artificially create beings with a deep connection to the Force. If this technology still exists, it could mean Force sensitivity isn't a natural gift, but something that can be given to anyone. If discovered, it could change the entire future of Force users. Hyperspace travel is actually connected to the Force. What if hyperspace isn't just a scientific phenomenon, but is tied directly to the Force? The reason why Jedi can navigate hyperspace better than others may be because they are unconsciously feeling the Force guiding them. Ancient hyperspace routes may have been created by powerful Force users who could manipulate space itself. If true, then unlocking the true nature of hyperspace could lead to Force abilities beyond imagination. The Force wants the Jedi and Sith to disappear. What if the Force doesn't favor Jedi or Sith, but is actually trying to eliminate both? The constant battle between light and dark may be disrupting the Force's natural balance. The Chosen One prophecy may not have been about destroying the Sith, but about ending both orders entirely. If true, then the Force may be working in secret to erase all Force traditions so something new and more balanced can take their place. There's a third side of the Force no one knows about. What if the Force isn't just light and dark, but has a third side no one understands? Some Force-sensitive beings may have discovered this hidden path, but were erased from history before they could share their knowledge. If someone unlocked this power, they might be able to transcend the struggles between Jedi and Sith. If true, then the Force may hold abilities that no one in the galaxy has even begun to imagine. The Bounty Hunters Guild has a dark secret. What if the Bounty Hunters Guild is more than just a collection of mercenaries and actually has ties to something ancient? Their traditions and rules may have come from a lost warrior order that predates the Jedi and Sith. The guild may secretly hold knowledge of the Force without realizing it. If their origins were ever uncovered, bounty hunters could become more than just hired guns and instead rise as a new Force-wielding faction. The first Jedi may have been artificially created. What if the first Jedi weren't naturally Force-sensitive, but were created through ancient technology? An advanced civilization may have experimented with midichlorians to artificially create beings with a deep connection to the Force. If this technology still exists, it could mean Force sensitivity isn't a natural gift, but something that can be given to anyone. If discovered, it could change the entire future of Force users. The Sith created the rule of two to hide something. What if the rule of two wasn't just about limiting Sith numbers, but a way to keep a greater secret hidden? The Sith may have discovered an ancient power that required a master and apprentice to maintain. If more Sith existed, the balance could break, unleashing something worse than any dark side user. If the rule of two was ever abandoned, whatever the Sith were guarding might escape and consume the entire galaxy. A hidden planet holds the source of the dark side. What if the dark side isn't just an aspect of the Force, but originates from a single location? A forgotten planet may serve as the true birthplace of Sith power, hidden deep in the unknown regions. The ancient Sith may have drawn their strength from this world without fully understanding it. If Jedi or Sith ever found their way there, they might gain power beyond anything seen before, or risk being consumed by the dark side forever. The Jedi once tried to use the dark side for good. What if the Jedi once experimented with using the dark side without falling to evil? They may have believed they could control its power, but failed, leading to the rise of the Sith. If this knowledge still exists, then someone might attempt to master both light and dark side techniques, unlocking abilities neither Jedi nor Sith could ever achieve alone. There's an ancient Jedi weapon more powerful than a lightsaber. What if lightsabers weren't the strongest weapon the Jedi ever created, but just the most practical? An ancient order of Jedi may have built weapons infused with the Force itself, capable of altering time, space, or even life and death. If one of these weapons still exists and falls into the wrong hands, it could make the power of the Sith or Jedi look weak in comparison. The lightsaber's true power hasn't been discovered. What if lightsabers have abilities that even Jedi and Sith don't fully understand? Ancient kyber crystals may contain hidden properties that no one has unlocked yet. If someone found a way to awaken these abilities, their lightsaber might be able to do more than just cut through objects, but even interact with the Force in ways no one has ever seen. Darth Vader was subconsciously trying to lose. What if Darth Vader wasn't just following orders, but was secretly sabotaging himself all along? Anakin may have been buried deep inside his mind, causing him to make mistakes that led to Palpatine's downfall. If true, then Luke's arrival may not have been the cause of Vader's redemption, but simply the moment where his self-sabotage finally succeeded and freed him from the dark side's grip. Force ghosts are actually stuck in the living world. What if Force ghosts aren't choosing to appear, but are actually trapped between life and death? Jedi believe in becoming one with the Force, but what if some spirits fail to do so? Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Yoda may be lingering in the galaxy, not because they want to help, but because they can't fully pass on. If true, then the Force ghost ability might not be a gift, but a curse for those who can't let go. The Force was once physical, but became energy over time. What if the Force wasn't always an invisible energy, but was once a physical substance that could be seen and touched over thousands of years? It may have evolved into the energy field we know today. Ancient Force users may have been able to manipulate it in ways that modern Jedi and Sith can't. If someone discovered a way to restore its physical form, they might unlock powers beyond anything seen in the galaxy. The Sith have a hidden homeworld that no one has found. What if the Sith homeworld that the Jedi discovered wasn't actually their true place of origin? The Sith may have hidden their real world somewhere in the unknown regions, ensuring that no enemy could ever reach it. If this world still exists, it may hold ancient secrets lost to time, and could contain Sith knowledge that even Palpatine never uncovered. The Force has an opposing energy that no one knows about. What if there's something in the universe that cancels out the Force entirely? Jedi and Sith may not have encountered it because it exists in the deepest parts of space. If this energy were ever discovered, it could render all Force abilities useless, meaning a single individual with this knowledge could defeat even the strongest Jedi or Sith without lifting a finger. The Force can control events without anyone knowing. What if the Force isn't just a tool, but an active force shaping events to reach a specific outcome? Every war and conflict may have been subtly influenced by the Force itself to maintain balance. If true, then no matter what choices people make, the Force will always correct history, ensuring that neither Jedi nor Sith ever achieve total control. The Jedi have a secret language that has been lost. What if the Jedi once had a language of their own that allowed them to communicate directly with the Force? This knowledge may have been lost over time, causing modern Jedi to rely only on training instead of true understanding. If this language were rediscovered, it could allow someone to speak to the Force itself and unlock abilities beyond imagination. The Jedi were once immortal, but lost their power. What if ancient Jedi once had the ability to live forever, but lost this secret over time? The oldest Jedi texts may contain knowledge that allowed them to extend their lives indefinitely. If this ability were ever rediscovered, it could mean that true immortality is possible for those who are strong enough in the Force to master it. The Force exists in other galaxies too. What if the Force isn't unique to the Star Wars galaxy, but is present in other galaxies as well? There may be civilizations far beyond the known universe that have discovered ways to use the Force that are completely different from Jedi or Sith traditions. If someone made contact with these beings, they might learn entirely new abilities that could change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Force has an upper limit that no one has reached. What if the Force has a hidden ceiling of power that no Jedi or Sith has ever broken through? Every Force user may have only tapped into a small fraction of its true potential. If someone were to break this limit, they might unlock abilities so powerful that they could reshape the entire galaxy in ways never imagined. The Force can be passed down through objects. What if the Force isn't just tied to living beings, but can be transferred into objects over time? Ancient relics may contain stored Force energy from their previous owners, allowing someone to access their abilities by using the right artifact. If true, then an individual could collect and absorb different Force powers by gathering these objects. There's a lost planet that creates Force users. What if there's a planet hidden somewhere in the galaxy that naturally enhances Force sensitivity? Anyone born on this world may develop a deep connection to the Force without training. If the Jedi or Sith ever found this planet, it could allow them to create the strongest Force users in history, or even change the way the Force itself is understood. Hyperspace travel was discovered using the Force. What if hyperspace wasn't a scientific breakthrough, but was originally mapped using Force abilities? Ancient Force users may have guided ships through unknown space using their connection to the Force. If this was true, then hyperspace travel may still have a hidden connection to the Force that modern pilots don't even realize they're using. The Force is actually a cosmic parasite. What if the Force isn't a mystical energy field, but a living entity that feeds on life itself. It grants power to those who use it, but in return it drains them, slowly corrupting or consuming Force users over time. Darth Plagueis is still alive, but exists outside of time. Plagueis could supposedly manipulate life and cheat death, but what if he found a way to exist outside of time itself? Instead of dying, he may be watching everything unfold, waiting for the perfect moment to return. Palpatine's secret clone war. What if Palpatine had a second clone army hidden in the unknown regions? Unlike the Kaminoan clones, these were infused with Sith alchemy, making them stronger and more obedient. This hidden force could have been his backup plan in case of failure, explaining why the First Order emerged so quickly.